There's something I hear quite often. I don't know what the work wants. And every time I hear it, I find myself wondering if that's really the question, because I don't know if the work ever stopped speaking. I wonder if we simply became occupied with something else. There have been many moments where I thought I had reached a point where I didn't know how to continue. The work seemed closed, nothing felt obvious anymore. And almost immediately, thought began offering suggestions. Maybe this shape should change. Maybe the whole composition isn't working. And it all sounds very convincing, but after a while I began noticing something. Those thoughts were all trying to answer the work, before I had really listened to the work itself. Almost like interrupting someone before they had finished speaking. And it made me wonder what would happen if for a moment, nothing needs to be solved. What if the next step didn't need to be invented, but noticed? Sometimes I simply stop, not to think, but just to look, to stay with the work a little longer than feels comfortable. And I find those moments surprisingly interesting because almost immediately something wants to change. A thought appears, or an idea, something that should change, or something that should be added, or something that should be fixed. And I can almost feel as though standing still is a difficult part. And because of that, it can seem as though nothing is happening. But I have started wondering if that is only because I'm beginning to notice how much thinking was already happening. Not more thinking, just becoming aware of the thinking that was already there. So instead of following the next thought, I stay a little longer. I keep looking, not waiting for an answer, just staying with the materials and the things that are already here. The colors, the relationships, the textures, the surface, the space between things. And after a while, something begins to feel different. Not because I made it happen, not because I finally found the right solution. The thoughts have become quieter. And in that quiet, I often notice something that was already here. A relationship between two colors, or a shape that suddenly stands out. A direction the work seems to be moving on its own. The work hasn't changed, but my attention has. I think this is what listening often feels like. Not waiting for thoughts to tell us what to do, but becoming quiet enough to notice what was already here all along. And I wonder if listening isn't really another skill we have to learn. Maybe it's simply what remains when we stop thinking over the work.